That's an amazing fight. Who you picking that one?
I think Ilia smokes him, bro.
He smokes?
I think he smokes him.
I don't think so.
It's a very bad matchup.
I think he's a way closer fight than you think. Why?
The odds makers have Ilia as...
Who is the odds maker, bro? Tell me your name. Who are these guys? Odds maker. Who's these guys, bro?
Gilbert Burns recently shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira, and he made some surprising comments. Burns didn't just talk about the matchup, he also pointed out some weaknesses in Oliveira's style that could be a problem in certain fights. He explained that Charles often fights aggressively, using heavy strikes and grappling, but that approach can sometimes leave him open in close-range exchanges. Burns said Charles can be vulnerable in the clinch, especially against fighters who use sharp elbows and knees. He also warned that Charles's upright posture and habit of getting into wild brawls might make him an easy target for powerful counterhooks. As a top-level grappler who also knows striking well, Burns stressed the importance of staying defensively sharp, especially against fighters who are good at finding openings and making them count.
Let me ask you this, though.
Yeah.
What's Charles Oliveira's weakness?
Charles Oliveira weakness.
Gilbert Burns also talked about the possible fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria. He said it's a tough situation for him because he's friends with both fighters, so he doesn't want to choose a side. Burns made it clear that the fight is much closer than people think. While some fans believe there's an obvious favorite, he disagrees. He explained that both fighters have top-level skills and different strengths, which makes the fight very even and competitive. In his opinion, this won't be a one-sided fight. It's the kind of matchup where just one or two small moments could decide who wins.
So you're picking Charles?
He's a close fight than people think. Both are my guys, you know, so it's kind of suck for me to pick a side, but I'm just saying that he's a way closer fight than people think.
Mateusz Gamrot gave his prediction for the upcoming fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria at UFC 317. He's picking Oliveira to win by knockout. Gamrot respects Topuria's power and knows he can be dangerous if he lands clean. But he thinks Oliveira's size and experience will make the difference. He pointed out that Oliveira has better striking, longer reach, and more time fighting top-level opponents in the lightweight division. Gamrot believes Oliveira is too experienced and too skilled for a featherweight like Topuria, who's moving up a weight class. He expects Oliveira to finish the fight before it goes to a decision.
Fair enough. Who do you think wins, Ilia or Charles?
Interesting matchup. The both guys has changed. Like if Ilia hit Charles Oliveira head, so he can knock him down for sure. But I think Oliveira is so big for him and for all-rounder fighter, and I think Oliveira...
Mateusz Gamrot also said that the fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria is very exciting and could go either way, but he slightly favors Oliveira. He admitted that Topuria has the power to end the fight with one strong punch, but pointed to Oliveira's size, experience, and grappling as important advantages. Gamrot explained that if the fight goes to the ground, Oliveira's submission skills and control could cause big problems for Topuria. Even though Oliveira can be unpredictable sometimes, Gamrot thinks his ground game might be the key to winning such a close matchup.
Wow, you think Oliveira's gonna win? I haven't heard a lot of people say that.
I think so. He is big. It depends how his performance will be in the fight, because sometimes he looks bad, but sometimes he looks fantastic. So I think that in the ground he will be much better for Ilia. Especially like the gabarit is much different. Oliveira is big guy, Ilia is small guy. So if Oliveira catch him in the ground, I think there's gonna be big problem. But like I say, Ilia can knock him out for him also, you know. So this is like 50-50, but I think Oliveira will win.
Renato Moicano also talked about the upcoming fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira, saying it's a much closer fight than people think. While some fans believe Topuria will win easily, Moicano disagrees, pointing out that Oliveira is tough and very dangerous. He also said that Topuria moving up from featherweight will make the fight more difficult for both fighters. At first, Moicano thought Topuria might win, but after talking to Oliveira during a podcast, he felt more connected to him. In the end, he's supporting Oliveira, not just because of his skills, but also because he's proud to support a fellow Brazilian.
You're fighting on the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria card. Charles is a big underdog. How do you see that fight going?
Man, that's a tougher matchup that a lot of people think. They think Topuria gonna run through Charles. You never count Charles Oliveira out. I think he's very tough. But Topuria is good, you know? He's 145. It's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I don't have an opinion on that. I was leaning more to Topuria, but today I just had a podcast with Charles on my Brazilian channel. It's just very hard to not like the guy. That makes harder, you know, to pick against him. So I'm going with Charles just because he's Brazilian.
Meanwhile, Gilbert Burns said it's going to be an amazing fight and asked his co-host who he thinks will win. Matty Betts quickly said that Ilia Topuria will easily beat Charles Oliveira, showing full confidence in Topuria. But Gilbert disagreed, saying he doesn't think the fight will be that easy, and he showed more respect for Oliveira's chances.
That's an amazing fight. Who you picking that one?
I think Ilia smokes him, bro.
He smokes?
I think he smokes him.
I don't think so.
During their talk, Gilbert Burns said the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira is a lot closer than most people think. When Matty Betts said that the betting odds show Ilia as the clear favorite, Gilbert disagreed and jokingly asked who these odds makers even are, like they're some mystery people hiding. Behind the scenes, he also said they often get things wrong. Matty replied that yes, they sometimes mess up, but they also get many things right, trying to keep things fair in the conversation.
I think that it's a very bad matchup.
I think he's a way closer fight than you think. Why?
The odds makers have Ilia as...
Who is the odds maker, bro? Tell me your name. Who are these guys? Odds maker. Who's these guys, bro? Who's these guys?
These guys are the shadows behind the
these
counter.
Guys made so many mistakes.
Of course they make mistakes, but like
so
they're also right a lot too.
UFC legend Chael Sonnen was surprised to hear that Ilia Topuria is the betting favorite in his first lightweight fight against former champ Charles Oliveira. Sonnen said it's hard to believe because Oliveira has done so much in the UFC. He was a champion, defended his belt, and holds the record for the most submission wins. He said Oliveira deserves a lot more respect and shouldn't be seen as such a big underdog in this fight.
Minus 370 favorite Topuria is to beat Charles Oliveira.
What?
Minus 370.
That is insane. That is not right.
To be the world champion that defended 3 times, has more submissions than anyone in UFC history, and he's a minus 370 favorite.
Khamzat Chimaev praised Ilia Topuria for his fast rise in the UFC and talked about when they used to train together at All Stars Gym. Back then, before Topuria became famous, Chimaev already saw his talent. Both of them were fighting at a high level in Brave FC, and Chimaev remembered how focused and hard-working Ilia was. Even at that time, it was clear to him that Topuria had what it takes to become a star. Now that Ilia is close to reaching the top, Chimaev says it makes sense, because of all the hard work he put in from the beginning.
Очень известный сейчас боец. Ты с ним вроде как давно знаком. Он тренировался в Альстаре вместе, вот до еще его всей известности. Когда вот тренировки, ты его видел? Ты видел этот потенциал будущий?
Ну, конечно, просто тогда, в то время, этот был он хорошим топовым бойцом в Брейве, как и я, мы оба там выступали. Видно было, потому что он такой пахарь и хочет добиться чего-то в своей жизни. И парень добился всех высот, которые можно в этом спорте добиться.
Gilbert Burns said that for Ilia Topuria, fighting Charles Oliveira is a much better style matchup than fighting Islam Makhachev. He mentioned that before Charles fought Islam the first time, he was dealing with some injuries and felt pressured to take the fight in Abu Dhabi anyway. That's why Burns still wants to see a rematch with a fully healthy Oliveira. He also explained that Islam and Ilia are very different types of fighters. Islam is a strong grappler, while Ilia is known for his sharp boxing and some grappling, but doesn't use many kicks, making him a different kind of threat.
It's a better matchup for Ilia than Islam, obviously.
For Charles?
No, I'm saying like Ilia, like obviously Ilia fighting Charles is a better matchup for him than than Islam.
I heard so many things that Charlie was very hurt in that first fight, but he had to take the fight in Abu Dhabi. He tried to pull out the UFC, kind of pressure him to get the fight. I gotta see that rematch, you know. I gotta see. Let's see. This guy 100% what he's gonna do against Islam, but he's a very different matchup. One guy's a boxer, the other one is He's a high-level grappler, but Topuria is still a good grappler, but no kicks, it's different, very different matchup.
Paddy Pimblett shared his opinion on the UFC 317 fight. He thinks Ilia Topuria has a good chance to beat Charles Oliveira. He said Oliveira is tough, but worries about how strong his chin is after nearly 40 fights and all the damage he's taken. Paddy also said Oliveira often takes big risks, which could be dangerous against someone like Ilia. He talked about how moving from featherweight to lightweight is a big jump that many fans don't notice enough. Since Oliveira has a similar body to Paddy, he thinks the size difference could be important, especially in a fight that focuses on striking.
Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
So,
he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
Exciting. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145, 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that 10 pounds makes a big difference. And especially like Charles is like my height, Ilia's like down here when I stand up, you know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference.
Paddy Pimblett also said that Ilia Topuria might be surprised by how big Charles Oliveira looks in real life. He explained that when fighters move up to a higher weight class, they don't always realize how much bigger and stronger their opponent really is until they stand face to face. Paddy gave examples like Bobby Green and Michael Chandler, who looked bigger on paper but didn't feel that big in the cage. He thinks this kind of size difference could be important when Ilia fights Charles.
Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is when he stands opposite him. Fighters do that with me, who fight at lightweight. You know what I mean? I'll never forget Bobby Green looking over at me and being like, wow, he's big him. Same with Chandler. Like people thought Chandler was going to be bigger than me, and he just weren't.
Michael Bisping talked about the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. He said Oliveira is a tough and dangerous fighter who always moves forward, throwing strikes and looking for submissions. Bisping also pointed out that this will be Ilia's first fight at lightweight, which makes things uncertain. He praised Ilia's fast hands, strong pressure, and good wrestling skills. With all that, Bisping said he wouldn't be surprised if Ilia wins the fight.
Ilia versus Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. We know Charles, he's a dangerous, aggressive son of a bitch. Gonna walk forward, punches, knees, elbows, he'll lock on a submission. Ilia, this is his first fight at lightweight, and with the punching power of Ilia Topuria, the boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it.
Finally, Michael Bisping praised Ilia Topuria's rise. He said Ilia is confident and has shown that with strong, clear wins. Bisping noted that Ilia often finishes fights cleanly and avoids taking damage, usually doing more damage to his opponents. Bisping thinks beating Charles Oliveira would be a big step for Ilia. He also said it wouldn't be surprising if Ilia is the favorite in the fight because he has looked so good and dangerous so far. I would say I support him.
I would say Ilia Topuria, given everything that he's done in the sport, the confidence that he's shown, the manifestation, the kids say, but bringing it all to a reality, knocking out everyone in his way, doing it in absolute style, hardly breaking a sweat, not having to fight through any adversity, not being the hammer and the nail. He's just been the hammer, just hammering his way through everyone. If he beats Charles Oliveira, which I would assume that he's going to be the favorite to do, and that's with absolutely no disrespect towards Charles Oliveira.
Also, Javier Mendez said he favors Ilia Topuria to win against Charles Oliveira. He explained that Ilia has sharp boxing up close and can land strong, clean punches. Mendez said Oliveira's upright stance might make him vulnerable, especially if he can't time his knees or front kicks well to keep Ilia away. Even though Oliveira has longer reach and powerful kicks, Mendez believes Ilia has a more complete skill set and a better chance to win.
You would pick Ilia over Charles. What is it about his skill set that you like more?
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and when he gets inside, he's going to use that boxing, and Charles' head's going to be up, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin on the inside. Really, really nice, just like what he did with Volk, you know. And I think if Charles doesn't get him up the middle with knees or front kicks up the middle, he's going to have a hard time with his boxing against him, and he's going to have a hell of a time trying to take him down. So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, you know, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, you know, body, head type thing, you know, low, high. You know, he could do really well with that.
Robert Whittaker said the lightweight division is really exciting now, especially with Ilia Topuria joining. He mentioned that UFC promised Topuria a title shot if he gave up his featherweight belt. Whittaker thinks fighters moving up in weight should be allowed to fight top opponents right away, but he also understands it's hard for fighters who worked their way up. In the end, he believes the UFC will choose the fight that makes the most money.
I think the lightweight division is the most exciting division right now. It's just death row in the lightweight division at the moment. Like the top 5, dude, that guard up there right now, it's just killers, man.
But especially with Ilia Topuria entering the mix, right? The whole big story over the past week was he obviously vacated the title at featherweight, but apparently he said the UFC told him, we promise you a title opportunity if you vacate. That's what he told Spanish media. Or I think he said as a backup, he would fight Charles Oliveira. And now they've gone back and forth. What do you reckon, Rob?
I don't know what was promised or anything, but I feel like if you're in a lower division and you vacate the title, you should go straight to the top of the pecking order. I'd like to see him go straight into a title shot. Okay. Understandably, it can be tricky that way because there are a lot of guys, like, styles make fights. So if the champion of a lighter division has a better style to beat the guy in the high division, where's the fairness of that? Because that guy may not get through 10 guys to get to a title shot. He may not get through the contenders. Yeah, I just feel like there should be a certain amount of weight for being the champion of the division already. I can also see the side of the argument for the guys in the division that have been like, brother, like I've had to slog, especially in the lightweight division, like I've had to slog my way to the top of this division, and it is death row there. I think UFC's going to do what makes them the most money.
MMA guru and Demetrius Johnson shared their thoughts on the possible fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. MMA guru said it would be a big pay-per-view event, even though no title is on the line, and called the matchup very exciting. He did wonder how Topuria will handle moving up to 155 pounds. Demetrius Johnson said Topuria is naturally a big athlete, usually around 191 pounds. He was surprised Topuria stayed at featherweight for so long and thinks moving up to lightweight makes sense. Johnson also said it's always interesting to watch fighters compete in higher weight classes.
If Ilia Topuria fights Charles Oliveira on a pay-per-view, that's a big deal.
Oh, it's going to be bigger.
They don't need to wait for an interim belt. They don't need to wait for an undisputed. So, yeah. I don't know how he's going to do it lightweight, though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller guy coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger from when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145 seems almost like, how did he do that? But now that he's going up to 155, I always like when athletes go up.
What do you think about the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinion in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it.